Welcome back to HAJIME Inside USA Judo series. I'm your host, Hannah Martin, and today we have a truly special guest. He's known around the world as the founder and guitarist of the multi-platinum rock band Five Finger Death Punch. But outside the spotlight, he is one of us, a passionate lifelong martial artist, a fourth degree black belt in judo, an active BJJ competitor, and someone, yeah, who regularly steps on the mat to test himself like any other judoka. So, Zoltan, welcome to the USA Judo Podcast. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. This is home. I'm back into the beginnings.
I'm so happy to talk with you and meet you. This is amazing. So, yeah, just speaking of competing, I heard you were at the President's Cup in Dallas a few weeks
Mhm.
ago. So, how did that go? Tell me about your thoughts on the event. And did you compete there? What happened over there?
So it was first and foremost, it was amazing because it's been a while that I was in judo competitions. I sort of switched to jiu-jitsu, and even when I say I switched to jiu-jitsu, it's not completely true because I started jiu-jitsu by teaching judo to jiu-jitsu guys, right? And then
Oh.
eventually I was training with Hoist Gracie, and I was jokingly I gave him, jokingly I gave him my black belt, my judo black belt, and I said, you know what? Give me a white belt, I start jiu-jitsu. That was some 20 years ago, right?
Oh, okay,
And
okay.
so I learned jiu-jitsu, but in this time, I was actively teaching judo and takedown. And to this day, I'm still the takedown coach for Warriors Academies. And, so judo been always there, right? But
Hmm.
I haven't been in a judo competition for a long, long time. So this was kind of like full circle for me. And I came with my sensei Joe Marshall, who's obviously you guys all know is a well-known
Yep,
Olympian,
yep.
but I kind of like everybody was there. So I know Tommy Dyer, right? So I've been in his dojo before, so that was cool to kind of reunite for a second. But for me, it's like meeting Eddie Liddy and all the guys that like Ron Tripp and all the guys that when I was a kid I was watching these guys.
Hmm.
So for me, it was kind of like the roles were reversed. Usually, I go to events and everybody's running up and want to take a picture of me. And I was the kid this time, like, hey Eddie, can we take a picture? So it was, for me that these guys were the stars when I was growing up and watching them,
Hmm.
in the Olympics. And the competition itself, I mean, it's one of the biggest one in Dallas. It's the 2 days one, 3 days one actually, right?
Hmm.
The
Yeah.
President Cup and the Dallas Open. So, I go to competitions all the time anyway, but because it was pure judo, it was again, it was a nostalgia in some way. And
Yeah.
I'm kind of coming back. I want to compete. So this time it was uncontested. There was not enough competitors in
Oh
my weight.
no.
I got
Okay.
an uncontested gold, but
You still got a gold?
I
It
showed
does
up,
count.
so I participated. But I wanna come back. I wanna compete in judo. So
Super
that's
cool.
the future. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, let's talk about competition then. So you are from Hungary. You started judo in Hungary. So how were you first introduced to judo?
So I started around 9 years old. So I was really young, and obviously judo is very popular in Hungary still to this
Mhm.
day. And I wanted to do martial arts, but nothing really was available. We had some karate, but we never really took that seriously. It,
Yeah.
it didn't feel real to me. I had kung fu and all those things that we've seen in the movies. It wasn't available, but we had a
Yeah.
judo. We had a judo academy, a judo dojo
Hmm.
in every major city. So it was accessible to us. It was state sponsored, so we didn't really have to pay for it either.
Okay. Yeah.
So I could go to judo. I started when I was 9 years old. And I could honestly say that my sensei and how we were taught. Well, first of all, we the training was brutal. Actually, it was it was very very hardcore,
Even
right?
at 9 years old, the kid for the
Oh
for
yeah.
the kids.
Oh my God. I mean, we were, they were shaping champions. Like that was the
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
So yeah. So the training was brutal, but for me it was the sort of the bushido, the way of life, the way of thinking, the way of being is that really affected me in a way that I believe to this day that I became successful in music and every venture I ever had because I was a judo guy. because I had that mindset, like it was literally kind of, beaten into us that my sensei would say that, look, there are no obstacles. Obstacles don't exist. There are only challenges, And then when
Yeah.
you're a kid and those things are kind of stuck in your head, like, oh, okay. And then you start to realize this thing where, I'm 9 years old and you had to fight everyone,
Hmm.
It's like just what it is,
Yeah.
right? And it changed the way I would behave because if you really think about it, you go on a mat, you have to do randouries. And on a very beginning, you're just a kid, right? Okay, well, I guess we're gonna have to do this, right?
Hmm.
And you start to get used to that. You accept the inevitable. This is gonna happen. I can't run away. I can't. This is only me. Nobody can help me. Nobody
Yeah.
can. This is me against the other guy. And then these human bad habits are being bred out of you, like the procrastination. No, no, no. This is happening now.
Hmm.
You have to do this right now. And
Yeah.
and those things, like you start to see obstacles as challenges, and eventually it started to turn around in your mind. And after a while, I start to look at the biggest guys. Can I beat him?
Yeah.
And that's a very different way to approach life. All of a sudden, life is not happening to me. No, no, no. I'm happening to life,
I
and
like
those
that. Yeah.
things run in your head. And I think that sort of set me up for
Mhm.
life. Like
Yeah.
to this day, that's the way I'm operating.
Yeah. I think a lot of judoka have kind of like this, I don't know, people might on the outside might think it's like crazy, like a little bit of a crazy mindset, but it's just like kind of, especially if you start really young. Like I also started judo when I was young, and you just don't even really know what you got into, but you're like taught all these things all at once. Your coach is telling you you fell down, you got thrown, you get back up, like yeah, this guy is bigger than you, but it's okay. You can still do randori with them, and you just like, okay, and you just kind of get thrown into this, and then you're like, okay, and then life happens, and like you kind of can just like handle life in a different way that I think a lot of people that don't experience this at a young age. So I think you like brought up like an amazing point because like I totally can agree with you with exactly what you just said. But
Also, like if you think about it, like you will not become an introvert because you have
yeah.
to communicate with everyone, all the
Hmm.
kids, all the senses, everybody is there, right? And there are various ages. Like I was 9, but we had guys that were 20 plus. So
Yeah.
so so even though we had kids classes that we would all interact, and then so you become very comfortable in your skin, right? And then
Hmm.
that's very important. Like you're 9, 10 years old, especially, you you start to be able to communicate with everyone your age and older people, and there is the respect that we were also instilled in us. Like
Hmm.
when I started jiu-jitsu, I was bewildered sometimes because it's a different culture.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
on a mat, somebody would yell over to the professor like, "Hey, coach!" And like, "Oh my God!" Like if I did that in judo, oh my God, I would get.
I know, right?
You know what I mean? So I was like, oh my God. And so I did notice that culture really affected me. But what's the benefit?
Yeah.
I'm not an introvert, I can communicate with whoever, right?
Yeah.
From a young age. And these low fears just disappear,
Hmm.
right? So your life is this, and then you start competing, and then you start to get to know how to, handle your adrenaline.
Hmm. Yeah, and the
Now,
nerves and all the other things that come with competing because there's so much that comes with it. Mental,
uh-huh.
physical, like you have to deal with a lot of things. And if you compete, so did you compete when you were young then? So
Yes.
how did
Uh-huh.
that, yeah, tell me about this. Tell me
Yeah.
about your early
Yeah,
days
so
of,
like by the time I was 10, 11, we would go to these competitions. And I can tell you this, that also I think that's the reason that I can go out on stage right now. Sometimes we have a crowd of 100,000 people.
yeah.
I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. And I think that's also came from there, that you had to manage your adrenaline. In fact, like when I compete these days, kind of I wish that I would have that adrenaline because it makes you a little bit stronger and it gives you this heightened
You
awareness.
get like, yeah, you're like extra
Ah,
focused when you have this.
and
It's
I can,
a great
right?
feeling.
It's
Yeah, I know.
easy
I kind of miss it. I need to go
to
back out and compete again.
you did it in your whole life, so you know
Yeah,
what I'm talking about. Like there is that thing.
exactly. Yeah.
But for me, because from performing my whole life and this, it's kind of like I could roll out of bed and compete. Like I don't have that adrenaline. Sometimes like, man, I wish I had that, but I can be like, okay, well, let's do this, like you know.
Yeah, it's
So that thing happened, but it all happened, I think, because I started early. And judo is kind of the sport where you with this one you're better off starting early.
Mhm.
Because right now I'm 220 pounds. When I get thrown, I'm gonna notice that. When you're like a little kid, you can be thrown 10,000 times, it
And you
doesn't
get right
matter.
back up and you're just okay, let's do this again. Yeah, no, I think it's judo is a little bit harder to start later on in life. This is
Right.
really
So
try.
I'm glad that I started that first, and then
Yeah.
I got into jiu-jitsu. And as I was teaching, tell you the truth, I think my judo got much better
Hmm.
because now I have to explain it, and it's a kind of a different thing, like because I have to explain to high-level jiu-jitsu guys who are black belts. They already really highly accomplished martial artists, and they are savages on the ground.
Yeah.
When it comes to the stand-up, it's very different.
Hmm.
Right? And so now I have to consider like, okay, I have to explain these guys who I have to respect because they're highly accomplished martial artists, but there are some very basics that I have to explain sometimes that, okay, here
Yeah.
are some body mechanics and I have to explain that. And also, I had to really think about every single technique, not just from the perspective of like, well, I have to explain it in detail, in high detail, that's what it is. But also now I have to consider that, rules dictate the behavior. These are jiu-jitsu guys. For us, somebody pulling guard is inconceivable. That's like,
Yeah.
but in jiu-jitsu, that's one of the weapons that they use a lot actually,
Yeah. I
especially
know
when
that.
they fight me.
Yeah.
They pull guard. But that's a weapon they use. So now I have to consider like, okay, it's a different behavior. So I can't teach them pure judo. I have to modify the techniques. I have to change certain things. Like for example, for a guard pull, you need two grips.
Hmm.
So a lot of my throws, because of this, because of 20 years of teaching jiu-jitsu guys, I started to like most of my throws as one grip. Like most of the time, I don't have a second grip. I collect as I go, but I initiate all the throws from one grip. And all those things happen because I was, teaching jiu-jitsu guys. So I think it modified my judo and it became different. And that's why also it's interesting. You're like, well, I want to come back and let's see what happens with this sort of hybrid, because it's nice, different.
Yeah.
In jiu-jitsu circles, I'm the judo guy. Everybody calls me like, the judo guy.
Oh,
And
wow.
they
Okay.
like literally world champions, like really high level,
Mhm.
very well-known guys coming to me, coming to my house, and they say, okay, show me this, show me that, show me that throw, show me how do you do this, show me the grip sequence of this. So I kind of integrated with that into that world. But as I'm coming back to judo now, like I've started to train with Joe Marshall like a year ago or so.
Mhm.
So I'm getting excited. Like, you know what? I wanna test those hybrids now in judo.
So what is bringing you back to judo?
Look, okay. Well, you asked me a question, you know the answer. Because you retired temporarily. I will bet
Temporary.
you right now on this podcast. I'll bet you. You can throw some money on this, but you'll be back. It's one of those things. Like it's just stayed with me forever. Like
Mhm.
when I came to America, I had a couple of years off because I didn't speak English when I arrived to America. So I literally came with a bag of clothes, a guitar, right? And I'm
Mhm.
like, let's do this. And so for those first couple of years, I didn't speak English. I had to, integrate in the society, figure out how to operate in America. So then, I took off a couple of years there. But second I could, I was back. So it's just something it doesn't,
It doesn't leave you, right? It's always there.
doesn't.
Judo is like yeah, it's a special I think it's a special sport and I think the community is special because they always if you're a judo, you're kind of accepted like wherever you go. You're like, "Oh, I just put a judo gi on and step on the tatami and you're like accepted." So it's amazing.
That's it, Hannah. So let's test this. You get into a conversation with a stranger. How many minutes it takes before you start talking about judo?
I mean, it depends on the situation.
I would say in the first 10 it will happen.
Usually it does pop up though, because
Okay,
someone's
well,
always
let's
like
see.
they ask me a question like, oh, like if I'm just walking or in the even like just in the summertime, I'm wearing like this, a short sleeve and I have like a little bit of muscle showing. They're like, oh, wow, you have a lot of muscles. And I'm like, yes, judo. And they're like, oh, judo. And it's this one way to start it. Or there's like, oh, why, like, or I trip and fell and I go, oh, my knee. Oh, what's wrong with your knee? Oh, judo, just
Okay.
always.
And question number two, how many times this happened to you? Restaurant or hotel lobby? Have you ever stood up and showed something to somebody like, no, 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 you put this grip, that grip? How many times that happened? It
I
happens
mean,
all the time.
yeah, like I'm like married to a judo coach, right? So like this sometimes I feel like we're having conversations and like they're like we're doing all these hand things and people are looking at us like in the restaurant like what are these guys doing? Like grab here and we're looking like this,
Right,
talking to
right,
each other like
right,
this and people are looking at us like, giving us like the side eye like these guys are
right.
weird, you know? But yeah,
But
it's
that's
happens
it.
to
That's
me.
what it is.
Yeah,
It's
it is.
because it is like when people say like martial arts is a way of life. It is. I feel a lot of people just kind of saying it because it's an idiom, it's a thing to say.
Yeah,
But
sure.
if you really did it, like you're a professional athlete, right? You did this your whole life, then it is really
Yeah.
this is your way of life. So everything you do, if you start analyzing the things you do actually in your private life, you start to realize like actually you're playing mental judo all the time, right?
Mhm.
Everything is strategy, everything has to be calculated, and everything, every move, even business move, it's a judo move. Like, okay, if I do this, I do that. Like it becomes a part of how you think. It's just what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's true. And it's like yeah, it's why okay, I did judo my whole life, so it's I've been training since, up to like last year basically. So like having the transition over to like just, working and finding myself in like the business world, I did put these judo values or mentality towards things and like I work hard for what, like how I would train. So I think like it's just
Right.
natural. It just comes natural, so um but yeah, judo, that's why judo is super cool. But yeah, I
So
don't know. I wanted
that's
to ask you a million questions, but like you're
just
just
here's the thing. Your question was, why am I back? I'm like, I never
yeah, why
left.
are you back? Yeah, this is let's go
Never
back.
left. I
Circle
just
back to
wanted
this
something
question.
different.
Why are you back? Yeah, but I see why you're back because it is like a big part of your life. It influenced your life. And the one question I wanted to ask you is when did you come to the USA? At what age did you come?
So I was 22. So most of as I grew up in Hungary, finished my education there. So I did all my schools. I went to college there. So I was there until I was 22,
Yeah.
right? And then jumping into the whole American society, very different, right? And I didn't speak English as I said before.
Yeah.
So
So,
I had a Hungarian English dictionary, right?
mhm.
And in a place I was staying, somebody left a book, and it was a collection of Stephen King novels, Apt Pupil, and Shawshank Redemption, and a couple of more. And
Okay.
I took the Hungarian dictionary, and word by word, I started translating. And I had no concept of grammar, so you can imagine this.
Wow. Yeah.
So I was trying to figure this out. And eventually I start to pick it up. And then you start to see, even though I realized then that English is fairly illogical because there are so many exceptions to rules. So
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to, learn because it's not a logical language from in that way. And but I was also watching TV with a closed caption. So I
Hmm.
could see the words and then how it's pronounced. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how, it took me some time.
Amazing.
But yeah.
And like if we have younger people listening to us, like there was no like, this Google Translate AI stuff that now you have your phone and you're just like blah blah, blah talking there and then a show. Like that doesn't exist. So it's amazing that you like taught yourself,
Oh
how
yeah,
to
it
speak
was
English.
all. But look, I'm actually really glad I did it that way because I didn't learn street English, if you know what I mean.
Hmm.
If you just being dropped into a society, you start to learn the street language, and that's not the same. So your vocabulary is not going to be the same. So,
Yeah.
because I learned by reading, and in a second I could actually read. I would spend most of my time in Barnes and Nobles because I couldn't
Barnes and
afford.
Nobles,
Yeah,
yeah.
because and Borders, there were
Yeah.
these bookstores back in the time in
Exactly.
America.
Yeah. I love Barnes. I love these stores back in the day.
Like knowledge was printed on paper. So I would go to Barnes and Nobles and they would know me there. So they would let me be there. They
Hmm.
wouldn't kick me out. And I would just read and read and read because there was now, now I'm speaking English and I understand. And I had access to all the books that wasn't translated into my language. So I could go into Eastern philosophy and all the things that I was really interested in,
Yeah.
right? And I would be just sitting there and just read and read and read.
Wow. Wow,
Yeah.
that's really, really cool, actually. Like super cool. So, yeah, you are a world-known rock musician. So,
Mhm.
do you think, yeah, judo has influenced you in a way? You know, you already kind of mentioned it, like it's helped you to become successful. Maybe just like martial arts in general helped you become successful because it gave you this special mindset. But how did judo, like specifically, help you?
So that's kind of what I mean, like the whole mentality, the way of life and the way we were trained. It's basically, I could say I was fortunate, but in the same time, it was pretty conscious. So I'm not going to give it all to like, oh, I got lucky because I trained. It was pretty conscious because
Yeah.
even me training, um, I was going to be a scientist. So when I went into school, I was put to a special school. We had like 2, 3 math classes every day.
Mhm.
Was picked. The socialist communist systems have this idea that we're gonna pick you out of school and we're
Mhm.
gonna put you where you belong. Meaning, if you were very athletic, they would put you in a school that is favoring sports. If you were like, they picked me because I was good at math and
Okay.
geometry, so they put me in the school. So I had this scientific mind.
Yeah.
So we were going to the same schools, but my classes were specialized. And the and I was pretty perceptive from the early age. So I knew that I'm in the math classes, right? I'm in the physics classes. So what would be the word? Generally, you call those guys like the geeks, the geek squad, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right. And and I saw that. I'm like, you know what? What is true intelligence? True intelligence is when you realize that and you go, nah, I'm not going to be one of that. And so I was doing martial arts and science. So I'm not the guy that you're gonna push around, kind of. So
Yeah,
so
yeah.
even when I started judo, even then I had a very conscious idea about it. And I can tell you I realized it later in life that not everybody sees it that way. But maybe because I was kind of a science kid,
Hmm.
I always looked at judo as science. So it's almost like, if I were to kind of explain it, it's almost like I'm looking at what's happening. I'm looking at the technique. We're being taught various throws. Being taught various techniques, and it's almost like I have an overlay, like if it's almost a heads-up display, right? So I
Yeah.
see the techniques, but to me, I'm calculating. Like I'm calculating, like where is your weight and what happens, what physically happens, So I
Yeah.
always looked at the science of it. That okay, to achieve kuzushi, all right. Well, how does that happen? And I would notice these tiny details, and those details stayed with me my whole life. Like I would notice, like okay, so whichever shoulder is lower, you can't lift that leg. That leg is pinned, right? So I would notice these details. I'm like, okay. So
Yeah.
even as I'm 10 years old, I would look at every single move. I would go, oh, I see. I see. There's a science to this. And if you think about it, nobody was born with the knowledge of judo or jiu-jitsu or any of the martial arts. Somebody had to figure this out, right?
Yeah.
Somebody had to come up with this.
Yeah.
So, this wasn't handed down in the scriptures from the days or
Yeah, there's
whatever.
no special, like, there's no great book of judo anywhere.
Correct. So somebody came up with this, right?
Yeah.
Because even before Jigoro Kano, I mean, obviously there are a lot of these techniques
Mhm.
were already there. So somebody had to figure this out. Why not you? So I kind of had that look at it, like, why not me?
Yeah.
I can figure it. I can come up with stuff, right? But for me, it was more of the science of it. Like, how did they come to this conclusion? Like, why this, right? And then so to me, it's the way of thinking, the science part of it, the logic, right? All that stuff is parallel to life because what is judo? What is music? What is like anything else? Snowboarding. You know what it is?
Mhm.
It's rhythm, right? Rhythm, timing, and harmony. There's a harmony. There's a your body can do certain things. There's an anatomical limitation. Like so,
Yeah.
so you have to be in harmony with the body. This has to make sense. There's a flow, right? Balance and timing. What is music? Exactly that. Harmony, balance, timing. It's the same thing in a different frame, right? And if you take snowboarding and any other, sport, surfing, perfect example. Mike Swade, big surfer, right?
Yeah.
I guarantee you that his surfing is instrumental in his judo success, because the balance, timing, all that, right?
Yeah, for
And
sure.
all of these guys are surfers for not for that reason, but I'm pretty sure that this is, so I always saw that, that correlation, even as a kid. And even my technique, everything was always, like to give you an actual example, right? When you go for an osotogari, just make something simple, right? If I go for osotogari, obviously my opponent has one too, right? So it's, and whose hip is where, it will decide whose upper body is curved over, who's taller. All those are elements that who's going to win this one, right? And so, and there are various ways, obviously, there are many ways to throw osotogari, but generally you have to watch for your opponent to counter you, right? And it's
I got countered so many times with Osoto because
right.
I would always go in with my head too much bent over and then I'm so off balance, so
Right.
easy to throw. But yes,
Right. So that's
I
why
know this very well.
you can visualize this because this is what you did in your whole life. So when I'm saying you can totally visualize this, so you go in for an oso, and my osotogari is the same since I was like 10 years old, right? And because I looked at the osotogari, I'm like, okay, if instead of making the foot I'm attacking, instead of making that foot light, I'm gonna make that heavy. I'm gonna pin that leg. So you can't counter me. See what I mean? So when I do an oso, I torque first. I'm gonna make sure that your weight is on the leg that I'm gonna attack, right? So once your weight is on that leg, then I go for the osotogari, right? Because once you kind of curve that way, once your leg is pinned,
Get them on most of their weight, a little bit of weight, a little bit more weight on the one leg,
Right. So then I can go for the oso, right? And you can't counter because you would have to shift your weight back. But if you shift your weight back, then thank you. You just made
in
it.
that moment, you are gonna give,
Right. But that microsecond there that you have to shift your weight back to be able to counter is enough for me, right? So, so I would see everything that way. Like I would look at it as science. Where is the balance really? How do I disrupt your body? I have this concept like I'm going to fight the shape. So I'm not even thinking about technique. I'm looking at your stance. I'm looking at your balance. And it's kind of a rough idea. If there's a snowball, if I run into a snowball, right? If I'm going to hurt myself. If it's a big snowball, you can even drive into it and you're going to crash your car, right?
Yeah.
Because of the shape of this. I'm making a weird example, I know, but you take a snow plow and it will just cut right through it. The shape of things matter, So I had this concept, like I would look at people's stands and how their body shape. And I'm like, I'm going to create the most detrimental shape to yours, right? So I would think
you would visualize this stuff. Like this is amazing. It's
I
so
totally visualize it. Yeah, that's
so cool.
It's like I had a heads-up display.
You're like, how do I contort their body in the way that I can throw them?
Right.
I love talking to all judo people because everyone has their own way of explaining judo, because judo is not what there's a book and this is how you do a sotogari. This is the only way. There's a million ways to do a sotogari, And it's just interesting to listen to people and hear how their osotogari works for them and how they figured it out, So, and some people can figure out osotogari. I actually really kind of never did. Other throws are better for me, other techniques are better for me, but then some people can't do these other techniques that I can do because I figured it out how to off balance the person, like you said, contort their body in a way to, to throw them. So
But
it's
you
so
can kind of,
interesting.
but you kind of dig into because the physiology and the science will always be the same, right?
Yeah.
Let's say go for an ochigari, right? If I go in for an ochigari, instead of going for the hook, it's 100% that I'm going to bump the inside thigh with my knee. So I don't go clean purposely. I don't go clean and try to hook it. I'm going to bump the inside thigh with my knee. It's 100% going to make you step. I'm going to make you step. There's no way that you're not going to step because I'm bumping you. And so I would do those kind of things, and people would look at like, oh, that's kind of a mean thing to do. So I would bump, and when you step back, then I go for the ashi, right? So I would have these combinations, and it's all come from that. I would just look at the science, like where do I put your
Like where does your body have to go? Because like you have to react. Like judo's all about reaction. So you have to create reactions, and that's completely normal to bump people. Like I don't know if you were watching, like, do you watch the IJF World Tour? Do you watch Judo TV? So maybe
No, and you know what? I will tell you this. Lately I noticed that the motion and how people, the new generation, the technique is changing.
yes, yeah.
The technique is changing, and I noticed this because there are things. Well, maybe I was away a little bit too long to considering judo, but so maybe that's why it's obvious to me that wow, the technique changed. People behave very differently, and the thing that I was told you about the shape fighting, I see it more and more prevalent. Like, oh, okay, other people are doing that too. So instead of if we give grip fight, it's all your hand. So how much weight to my hand, right? But instead of just grip fighting with my hand, I'm gonna take wherever you stand, I'm gonna take that space from you, right? So while I'm grip fighting, I'm gonna invade your space. I'm gonna make sure that you can't stand where you stand. So it's almost like I'm invading the space. I'm pushing you out of your stance. And I started to notice like there are more and more of this. A lot of people do the bumps. A lot of like, I mean, obviously, I grew up in Eastern Europe. Our judo was always a little bit rough, Like, again, we can talk judo because, like Morote Saunaga, right?
Yeah.
If I pull and start, like put my elbow under, right? So the way we would do it, we pull, and then I'm going to hit you with that first, right? So instead of going over, I'm going to hit you with that first. So you notice it, and then I go across, right? So it was always kind of rough, right? And, everybody had their thing. Like, so for us, at least the Hungarian guys were pretty rough. The Russians were pretty rough,
Yeah, every country has their own like thing.
Mongolians,
yeah.
Kataguruma, almost always, so that they're gonna go for it, right? So everybody had these habits, and we had a pretty rough judo, and I noticed that actually became the thing. Like as I'm watching it lately,
You're fighting, like it's become more judo the gentle way, but you're fighting another person, and it's so competitive now. Maybe you notice this. It's like so many countries are involved in the sport. It's become so much competitive. It's at a really high level. I think the highest level it's ever been at the moment, like worldwide. And so, yeah, you have to come up with different ways and different tactics to get to the ippon, So like you have to, or else you're not going to win. You can't be nicey playing, let me do beautiful judo. You're fighting someone. So it is a little bit different.
It's not so gentle. I mean, like I noticed that there is if you look at the Japanese, at least how I saw their technique, it took me some time to understand that they're looking at a technique, and because of their mentality, they're looking at this technique and they're like, how can I make that throw or whatever technique I'm doing as perfect as it can be? They went for the perfection of the throw itself. So it has to be perfect, right? Where us Europeans, I'm just going to put you down. whatever it is. It was a totally different mentality,
Yeah, and like then it like hurts. I don't care if you hurt yourself or or the other person. Like it doesn't
Right.
matter.
It's just a different, it was a different, but I started to later in life, I really started to appreciate,
Yeah.
and like I trained with I trained with Joe Marshall, so we trained a lot, and he lived in Japan for the last
Hmm.
2 years, and I can tell the way he moves. I'm like, whoa,
Don't you
it's
feel like they're floating a little bit like on the mat? I always feel it because like when I train in Japan, training so I obviously trained in was in USA training for a long time. I trained at Jason Morris Judo Center. Very beautiful judo, very beautiful techniques. Jason, Morris has amazing judo. But then when I would go to Europe for training camps, right? Go to the Paris training camp, whatever, I would come back and like, I don't know, this like cauliflower ear stuff, like
yeah.
both my ears would be like this because everyone I just would be getting oh I also chipped my tooth at a training camp because like they're just kneeing you, they're elbowing you, and you're punching you in the ear, and I was like, what is this judo? Then I go to Japan and I'm like, you're like you're floating, you're doing judo, like it's just the pace of the match, the Rindori fight was
Mhm.
so much different than like the Europeans, it was like a brawl
Right.
for 5 minutes, and then in Japan, you're like 8 minutes, trying to get the perfect position, and I was just like, this is such a big difference.
Because they understand the Jew part of judo, we understand the do part of just do. you know,
That's really funny.
right? So that, and look, I mean, like up training with Joe, it's like I'm seeing that, like everything he does, just he flows.
Hmm.
Of course, I'm a heavyweight. I mean, he's lighter, so it's a little bit easier when you're lighter to
Yeah,
move that.
to move.
I have to accept that I'm built like a tank, and I'm never gonna be, the floaty guy. But still, from his motion, I can totally see that
Hmm.
it's always the perfection of the technique. Everything he does is like textbook perfect, versus again East Europe. You're just going down. That's all I understood.
Yeah, you're just
You
like,
go
did
down.
I
That's
did I get the opponent? I throw. Are you on the floor? Like that's all that
right.
matters to you.
I mean, I was really enjoying of like, to see a different angle now. Like,
Yeah.
wow, this is about the technique itself. It's almost like as if the outcome doesn't even matter. You
Yeah.
know, it's a different mentality. Like as if it didn't even matter. It just, can I do this perfectly? And it tells you like that's the mentality. Like, look at how the Japanese would, wrap a gift. Like as a science project, I'm just looking at like, how is this even? I have a lot of friends, Japanese friends. Every
Okay.
time
Okay. Yeah.
they bring gifts. That's
I actually just saw like a Instagram reel about how they wrapping presents, and I was
oh,
like,
it's crazy. And
wow.
I mean, it's like, it looks like a professional wrapped it, but no, they did it. Like they're so precise about everything, and that shows in the judo for sure.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. Yeah, so what is your favorite judo technique since we're talking about techniques?
So I generally, so there, because I believe there's no clean technique that I'm gonna just go and do this. It's really rare. Like for example, just so go from the other side. It's almost, it's almost no way that I would just go for an uchimata. There's no way that I'm just gonna go for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so the way we used to train, my even when I was a little kid, like so, or sensei would always like, you have to have a first, second, and a third intention, right? And so I have my first intention, but my first intention is generally a feint. It's a technique that I'm going to throw out there and probably not going to do. It's just to set you up, right?
Hmm.
So it's a second or a third intention. Like my most go-to, actually, believe it or not, my most go-to technique would be a koshi-guruma.
Koshi.
Koshi Kuruma would be the most successful. I threw the most people in my life with Koshi. And the reason that I could do that, because I throw it a little bit differently. I
Hmm.
throw it from high grip, so it's always a grip on that. So I'm not lap hold and switch. I always try to get a high grip, right? Collar grip high, and always try to go from there. Now, once I acquire that top grip, and it's usually comes from I pretend to go for something else, right? And
Mhm.
as you turn, you're gonna give me that, you know? So I reach on my right side, let's say, or the left side, and I get the other grip, right?
Yeah.
So there are ways to, feint and obtain that grip.
Yeah.
Once you have that grip, basically my koshi is I'm gonna pull you toward me really hard instead of me going toward you, right? So I'm gonna pull you toward me really hard. This way, I'm coming forward, you coming toward me. I'm faster because we halving the distance. You coming toward me and I'm coming toward you, instead of me coming, which you see probably that I'm coming, right? So I'm pulling it really hard, and halfway in that pull, is generally violent, gentlemanly violent, all right?
Yeah.
Gentlemanly violent, okay? So I pull it and then I let the grip go. So as your head would kind of slide up here,
Mhm.
right? Because I pull it, and so the head comes here, and in a second it's here. I'm already turning, so I'm already turning my hand. I do this corkscrew with my hand. So to take it, so basically I do that to move your neck from the straight alignment. Because in a second you that way now you can't you don't you're not going to be able to suplex. You're not going to be able to lift me because your spine is kind of curved. Again, I see it as physics, right?
Yeah,
So in a
yeah.
second you kind of curve, you lose that ability to lift, or at least half of your power is gone, right? So you
Yeah.
pull the crochet, the head comes here, and then I start torquing, and I kind of do as I turn, I keep pushing the head down, and then I attain the second grip. So most of the time, I don't have the second grip, so people don't see it coming,
Yes,
right?
it's off the grip attack. It's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's stop,
Yeah.
pull, the head comes, and but I immediately turn it. So it kind of puts you out of balance, puts your foot, pins the other foot so you can't step away, and
Hmm.
then I go like the other grip, and I keep turning that. Now, if for any reason, if you hit, or most of the people, if they're quick enough, they will try to rotate into the direction of the throw to step out. In a second you step out, I throw tayotoshi to stop your step. If you
Hmm.
step over my leg, then you get a buchi.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you step
There's different, yeah. You have like some backup techniques. Not really
right.
backup, but it's like
Gokoshi, Tayo,
yeah.
Uchi. So that's
Yeah.
my chain. Or I would go for Ouchigari. I
Hmm.
bump, right? So it's a feint. So it looks like I'm going for Ouchigari, but I bump the inside of your thigh. So you have to step back, and then I go for, Odeashi. A lot of Osotogari, I step into Oso and turn into a side. So, I step in, but if you start escaping, and I just block it, either Sasai or Hizaguruma. So most of my throws are a feint, or I go for something and I know you're gonna escape. So that's pretty much that. I do that a lot. And once I got really involved in jiu-jitsu, I'm a black belt, first degree black belt in jiu-jitsu. So I'm a black belt for 5 years in jiu-jitsu.
Hmm.
And I did it like about 20 years, right? And I compete in jiu-jitsu. So I medaled in international competitions. So I do pretty well there. And then they know me as the judo guy. People pull guards because like everybody's don't stand with him. You're gonna get trouble. So, so I'm the judo guy there. And so because they have specific habits of breaking grips, you know, well, I mean we break grips too, but
Hmm.
not the same way. But because there's a lot of breaking grips, I developed a lot of techniques that now I use where I use your grips against you,
Hmm.
right? So if you have a grip on my lapel, right, instead of trying to break it, I lock it to myself. Like I lock it and then hold your grip. And basically I hold your grip and step back with extend your hand, and then I throw into the direction that you stuck. So, all the sleeves grip, I basically developed these techniques of reversing your grips,
Hmm.
and I'm throwing from the reversal. So in a second I reverse the grip, then I throw from that. So a lot of this one-handed,
Yeah,
one
so like
hand.
a lot of one-handed judo. So which is very useful actually, because it's actually very difficult, I mean, to get two hands on and get the perfect grip, to be honest with you. Like
Right. Yeah, yeah.
there's like so many athletes, including myself, sometimes we're like looking for the perfect grip so we can do the perfect moment, perfect throw, but there actually is no perfect grip, perfect moment. You might get it like a few times in your career, or like even a few times like in Randori it's a little bit easier. to get because it's a different environment. But in competition, you barely get it, you know?
True.
So you have to like adapt and like use other person's grip, like you said, and like, yeah, not get the perfect grip because you can't really get it when you're fighting another person and they're also fighting for their grip or
Right.
taking your grip off. There is like
So
you might have the perfect grip for 2 seconds and that's it's finished, you know? So
imagine if you change your mentality and you, because it's to me, it's like, look, we are grapplers. You can't hit me. So you're gonna get a grip, right?
yeah, yeah,
So you know you're gonna get some kind of a grip. And so imagine if you because that's what kind of I did. I know you're gonna grab me anyway. So why don't I decide where you're gonna grab me? And
yeah.
in some jiu-jitsu competition, I give up specific lapples because I know you're gonna go for it. Or I give up certain grips because I developed the technique against it. So now I'm baiting you. So I'm reversing your grip. I usually give up my left lapo,
Mhm.
right? I give that up because I know you're going to go for it. And then a lot of times I actually don't grip, which is a strange in judo,
Oh
but
yeah.
check. So, okay. So let's say you reach toward me. So you can see in the camera that I would reach for the inside. So as you're reaching toward me, right? I'll reach for this inside grip. But instead of grabbing here, I just grab right here. So controlling the forearm. So, as we always fight for who's the inside, right? But I guess that's the best way to explain it. We all fight who is the inside grip, right? Like there's the outside, you have a lap, I have a lap,
In there.
yeah, and we fighting like who has the inside grip, right? So when a person has that grip, I attack this fold. It's almost like I karate chop it, as I can say. I'm gonna hit this, like I snap it, like almost like I literally chop it. We fold it. In a second, your grip is not straight, it's folded a little bit. This elbow, I just suck it into my chest, and now
Yeah.
you stop. Now you stop.
You would be like my worst nightmare because I used to because I had a few competitors that would do this to me and I like absolutely hated it. Like hated it. Like I would have like my nice little grip and then they'd be like
I lock
suck
the
me in
grip.
and I'm like I can't do anything. Like I'm super strong. Like what's going on here, you know? But yeah, like that
I do that a lot.
yeah.
Like so I,
So
I lock your grips.
very
I give up,
familiar with this.
and then and this is what I meant. Like when even I was a kid, I was looking at this always in the scientific ways. I would look at your gi and then see which way which level did you. Some people do it backwards. So I would look at which side of your gi is on the front, right? Because if I try to grab that straight, that's difficult, especially in competition setting to get that. Especially when you started, the gi is clean still, so like your gi is still tight.
Yeah.
Once it pull that, like you have better grips, but once it's tight, it's hard to grab. And
Yeah.
I would do things that when you stand in front of me, I would circle out to the outside, so I can chop sort of like my hand in there, so I can basically put my hand inside the gi. So instead of getting for a straight grip, I will go to the outside and I would literally attain the grip like this, grab it, circle, and change. So that would be my thing. Like it's always this way. Whichever side is the top side of your gi, I would kind of like almost like chop in
Yeah.
here. So I can grab it.
There is a
Pull.
judo chop, you guys. I'm kidding.
That's a judo chop. If you were looking for a judo chop, that's the right? Chop, pull, change hands. So I would, and I would look at those things literally from, okay, so if your gi is folded, how do I get it, right?
Yeah.
So I have these weird habits that are with me for decades now.
So I have a funny question, or not a funny one, but do you have like any songs that are inspired by judo, like a lyric in a song or anything like this?
All of it. I mean, a band, a band is already named like, Five Finger Death Punch. You know that the name came from the movie Kill Bill, which,
Okay.
yeah, remember that Kung Fu five finger, whatever, lotus exploding heart technique or whatever the hell?
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It would be just a weird band name if I called it the Lotus, exploding heart technique would be weird. So we shortened it to Five Finger Death Punch. And then there was another Kung Fu movie called Five Fingers of Death.
Okay.
So the whole, so the whole imagery of the band and that, that was all martial art inspired. So that was,
Oh,
yeah. So
okay.
the whole thing was always like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. But
Specifically, I didn't say it would be weird to put the word judo in a.
right, how do you maybe in the future can you put judo in
But
a song?
yeah, but the whole like look, as I said, my whole career, I would say in music, and I have various other ventures. I firmly believe that it became successful because I had that mindset,
Yeah.
I think like a martial artist. That's a very different way of
Yeah,
life.
for sure. Let's talk a little bit about like, judo. You're very active in like the American martial arts scene. What do you think USA Judo can do to grow the sport and bring more awareness?
So okay, so there's an interesting thing is happening with that, and tell you the truth, it's like this is my next mission. I really want to help. This is where I started, and I want to dedicate both time and resources to help.
Mhm.
And I have a pretty massive platform now, so I can actually really help.
Yeah.
So I did notice that the jiu-jitsu now is basically bypassing by attendance, by membership, it's growing and getting bigger than judo, and why that is happening and how, and how can be fixing that? How could we fix this or at least compete? And so there is something that happens naturally, and I can tell you this that I see it because I'm a part of it, right? Where I pretty much I know all the top guys, the top players in jiu-jitsu. I have a very extensive network, and I'm built into that. Really, really, I could say I have an influence in that world, a pretty serious
Mm.
influence. And I am also a coach. I'm
Yeah.
teaching guys, and they come to me for techniques. And so what's happening that naturally occurring and will help USA Judo will be that all the high-level jiu-jitsu guys now, jiu-jitsu got to the point that it's so widespread that if you remember in the very beginning of the UFC, Royce Gracie would win,
Hmm.
which is actually Royce is here at my house actually right now.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
yeah, so he's actually good. So Royce was winning because nobody understood what it was. Nobody understood,
Hmm.
jiu-jitsu and judo. Well, we need the grips, and no gi judo wasn't really a thing. So judo couldn't really succeed in a UFC and MMA setting because you would have to convert most of your techniques. I mean, some techniques will work, but the essence of judo requires a gi, and so that doesn't really translate to MMA.
Yeah.
But jiu-jitsu translated better, and then nobody understood what it was, but that's been since what was the first UFC in America was 1993, right? Since that, I mean, some time passed. And so what's happening now with jiu-jitsu is that it's so widespread that you need more things now. So with pure jiu-jitsu, you could dominate 15, 20 years ago. Not anymore. Everybody knows enough jiu-jitsu. Everybody knows enough to defend themselves. So naturally, you need more stuff, other stuff in MMA.
Yeah.
And also in jiu-jitsu competitions, this generation who's fighting for world championships now, the adult division, were born in 2000, 2002, 3, 4, right? Somebody who's 20 years old was born in 2005. They already had an iPhone, you know what I mean?
Crazy.
Like we just pay phones. It's a whole different world, right? So they were born into a world when jiu-jitsu was super widespread and they could learn all the techniques. It was some Brazilian secret. So what's happening with them is that when you go to these competitions, everybody knows everything. You need other stuff. And they started to realize that they have to stick out somewhere, somehow to be stars in the sport. And also they need more techniques. And they started to realize that if I submit somebody with a choke or a kimura in jiu-jitsu, okay, cool, happens every 5 seconds in a competition. When I throw somebody, the whole arena jumps up, yeah, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And I do that because I'm the guy who generally throws people in jiu-jitsu tournaments. So I know like every time when I slam somebody, the people would scream like, "Oh my God, look at." So all the jiu-jitsu guys started to gravitate toward judo. So there's a massive influx that's going to come from jiu-jitsu, right? Mm-hmm. So either they join a pure judo academy or judo dojo. I don't know. Some of them will. Some of them did. Some I influenced to do that, right? Mm-hmm. And but they definitely seeking out judo coaches to learn a stand-up because they realize that they're missing that. And now it became visible because everybody's Nevaza, basically, everybody's ground technique got so high level that it's who makes the first mistake. That's it. That's who's losing, right? The first mistake is losing. And it became so competitive that way that they need the extra edge. And the extra edge will be judo. Our Nevaza is a little bit different. We have others that we do, and definitely we have the stand-up that they generally seriously lack. And not just the techniques, but also the concepts, right? When we're talking about
the understanding of how, it's not that easy just to throw someone, sometimes it's a little bit funny, to watch jiu-jitsu people try to do judo because they look like little babies sometimes because they're so confused about how the balance and they're gripping, they're so stiff and they're and because they don't understand they have to kind of be loose and feel the movements, and you see it and sometimes it's crazy, but they're amazing in the ground obviously, but they stand up and they're just they're white belts standing up, honestly, because they don't know what to do. So it's quite interesting that it's such a big difference,
Huge difference. And you can look at high level guys and then look at the balance, how to achieve Zushi, just the basic body mechanics standing. Footwork is everything. So the footwork is off, and there are some general concepts. Like every time I start a class, I literally do this to them. Doesn't matter to me that you're fifth degree black belt, whoever is in my class. So first thing, I line up everybody and says, okay, lower your shoulder, just one over your shoulder, just 2 inches. Okay, lift the leg under the shoulder. You can't. Okay, so that leg is pinned. So you now understand, this is one of the main concepts in judo. Whichever side I tilted you, that leg is pinned. It will take effort for you to lift it because you have to shift your balance, which gives you time because that is slow now. So every class, regardless what are we doing, because I want to drill this into them. So what happens if I grab your gi and I pull you? I just pin that leg. That's your moment. You can't lift that. And then I would vectorize them okay, if that leg is pinned and you cannot lift it, every attack that's going to be happening in the direction of the pinned leg, you can't lift it. So you will fall. If I push you the other way, you can step because the other foot is light. So I would be vectorizing their fight. If you look at let's say the French team, for example, when they train, they even talk about what throw can happen on what side of the mat. They literally talk about where you are on a mat at the moment and what you're doing, right? Mm-hmm. So this concept of vectors, which direction I need to push you and when and why, they have zero concept of that, right? But they want it because they realize that, and see, Jiu-Jitsu exploded to such numbers now that if those guys start coming toward judo, and they are now, and it's very obvious, then obviously I see a future when these two martial arts kind of reunite how it used to be, sort of,
So you think we need to collab, Jiu-Jitsu and judo? They need to do some crossover. Is that what you're thinking? Is this where your angle is, or your ideas?
Look, I mean, no, in a way of judo and our rule set and our competition and our Olympic, competition and that rule set, that's set. That's not going to change that much, So I'm not saying that those rules need to change. All I'm saying that Jiu-Jitsu guys, to be competitive, they will need to learn some judo.
But we, in the judo community, we want more judokas. We want. Maybe the jiu-jitsu guys will be oh, we just love judo and they want to stay with us. So we're not, looking to steal, obviously, people, but
we're looking to steal. Now let's just go for it. Let's
but no, we're looking to grow the sport, bring awareness.
But I see. So that's what I mean. a lot of guys that I trained with ended up joining pure judo academies,
Yeah.
right? Because they wanted to learn. And again, I have really high level guys are coming and wanting to learn. So
Yeah.
that means they at least need the coaching. And how they're gonna get the coaching? That means you have to have judo coaches to be able, you have to have sophisticated high level judo guys to be able to teach them that stuff.
Yeah.
So
That's true. Yeah.
right? That means that our athletes have a job, right? That they're gonna be hired, and I see this is happening, that they're gonna be hired for jiu-jitsu academies or running classes at jiu-jitsu academies because they need that part.
Yeah.
So I mean, so in some way it's coming into coming into this the judo world. What I think that we USA Judo need to do also is, I feel like judo competitions need to be streamed live, right? I think that should be there. Like, like anytime we have any judo competition, it should be on Twitch and Twitter and whatever they have streaming platforms there are, YouTube Live. All this should be streamed. And also, that's one thing. And the other thing is we need to build superstars again.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like there has to be an effort. Like, I mean, look, I was a kid, but I remember these guys to this day, right? Like, remember, like back in this, Koga, Yamashita, Hideko Yoshida, all these guys. This day I know, even the Americans. I mean, like for the 80s, who was there? Joe Marshall, Eddie Liddy, Mike Swain, Steve Cohen, Kevin Asano, right? Then you go to the 90s. There was Jason Morris, Jimmy Pedro, those two were going at it. Then you go to the next generation. Then you had, Jimmy was still active in the 2000s, but then you had Reddy, right? And Reddy Ferguson, Von Razzie. You had Travis
Stevens, yeah.
Right? I feel like they were stars back then. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's not enough attention building stars, because once you have stars, you have the Conor McGregors of judo without without the language, but the Conor McGregor.
Yeah, for sure. No, we need the faces, like the stars you said, and
because look at the behavior of kids. I can parallel this to music, right? In the 80s, everybody wanted to be a rock star, right? Then all this thing moved to the whole Seattle grunge scene, right? Then everybody wanted to do that. Then the hip hop guys became popular, right? So everybody wanted to be a rapper, right? Then we have this whole YouTube generation. Everybody wanted to be a YouTuber. So kids are impressionable, and they're gonna go where they feel like they get attention. What a kid wants? Attention. It's a kid, right? So they want to go where they get attention, right? And so you can see in popular culture. So I feel like if we really made it an effort to pay attention to our elite athletes, but the elite athletes need to be popular. They need to be superstars and celebrated and helped. Another thing is that a lot of people don't know. I would say a lot of people, meaning like 99% of people, or probably that percentage even higher, don't know that it's true to boxing, it's true to all Olympic sports actually, but the smaller ones, that especially the combat section of I don't know, taekwondo and judo and let's say boxing, right? That they're heavily underfunded, and I don't think that people know that these are nonprofits, right? So every help that they get from the general population makes a huge difference how we can train our athletes and how this organization can operate. And I simply don't think that anyone knows that.
Yeah.
Like, America cannot step behind American, judokas and American athletes if they don't know this scenario that, hey, this is a problem, this can be fixed, and and we can step up and do something. And so that's kind of what I meant, that I have a platform now that I can talk about these things, and I can actually
bring the awareness, which is what we need. To close, this was actually really awesome to speak with you. Like, you have like Yes, I feel like we can like talk forever actually about judo, you know. But if you can give like, one message to, a young judoka or someone that's like looking to find, like a sport who's thinking about beginning martial arts, like what would your message be to them? Like
It's
why should they start, Yeah.
it's really that. I'm a living example of that. Somebody who started as a young age, and you can start at any age, regardless what age you are. You can start judo. It's easier when you're younger, but you can start at any age. I have friends who started in their 40s, right? And whatever age you start, it will absolutely rewire your mind. It rewires you as a person. It will change the way you think. And as I said, I became successful in life because of that, because it rewired me, because I think differently. When you start thinking like as a martial artist, again, you see obstacles as challenges. When you master something, it's you're going to be really good at crisis management because a martial art battle is crisis one after the other that you have to deal with, right? And as you get better at this, when you are in an unfortunate position, let's say you're in Nevada, are you going to tap or are you going to fight out of it? Right? You're going to have to reach deep and you have to fight out of that. And you have to, these are skills that will help you in your regular life. And these are skills that will become habits. When it becomes your habit, that my first thought is not to tap. My first thought is try to find my way out of this troubled situation. And so is life. Things happen, right? You have to deal with those and you have to figure out how to get out of them. And then when you get really good, then it's like, I'm not just going to get out of it, but I'm going to use your move against you. And then so when you parallel to life, when something terrible happens in life, and it happens, right? My first thought is like, there is a silver lining here somewhere. Whatever how bad this position is, I'm pretty sure that there's an angle that I can actually gain from this. I can use whatever life threw at me, I can use that energy and turn it around and use it, right? So that's the way we think as judo guys, as martial artists. And once that ingrained in your, technically your DNA almost, right? That's your makeup, that's how you think, you just can't fail in life. You just can't. You're a fighter. You're basically engineering yourself to be a fighter, to be a survivor. So it's not just the obvious where, yeah, you can defend yourself. Your physical ability, your stamina, especially judo is brutal. Like you have to have, you really have to have gas tank, right? Yeah. So those are the obvious, the health benefits and the knowledge and the fact that you're a whole person, a full person that can stand for herself or himself, right? Mm-hmm. That's the obvious. But beside that, what happens inside, that matters. Because it will completely change the way you approach life. I would say the last line on that, life, you will happen to life, not life happens to you. You happening to this planet, not the other way around. And when you accept that, like I'm here, I'm happening too. I was born into this world, I'm happening to this world. Once you accept that, you can never be a victim. I am responsible for everything that I do, everything I say, right? Because I'm here, I was born into this world, and I'm happening to this world. I'm here to make my mark. That's the way, that's the martial art mindset. And if you join this, if you become a martial artist, you can't fail. You just can't fail. That will be bred out of you.
I love that, and I totally agree and feel the same way as a judoka myself. So
hello, judo, right?
Honestly, yeah. Zoltan, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it, and yeah. I hope to see you one day on, at a USA Judo event competing. Hopefully not uncontested.
It's gonna happen, 100%.
Great. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you so much.